Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for tuning into this special edition of the XDS podcast. I'm Nick West, the co-founder and head of operations at West Studio.
And I'm Jen Hernandez, West Studio's Director of Business Development.
And we're joining you today as the very proud sponsor of this year's Women at XDS event. It will be held on Wednesday, September 4th from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. at Batch. And the event was originally conceived as a safe space for female identifying attendees of XDS to connect with one another, something that today's slate of guests knows the importance of having all too well.
That's right. In today's episode, we are so excited to share the Women at XDS podcast, Amplifying Women's Voices in the External Development Community. This conversation is a true celebration of the women in external development and features a group of experienced and talented female voices in the community. Carla Rylance, Calaway, Tara Phillips, and Nikki Roth. It's such a refreshing discussion to hear in particular because even though we have all of our own unique career challenges, there are some experiences specific to the struggles of women in the workplace that can often make us feel a bit lonely or isolated. And so in that regard, just making the time and space to have this conversation seems not only empowering, but incredibly timely.
It was especially timely for me because I recently became a mom myself, and it was informative to hear about other moms' experiences in the workplace and how they see themselves and feel they need to present in different contexts. And I also found myself having so much respect and admiration for moms who became moms before the pandemic and during the pandemic, something that I think must have been incredibly difficult.
That's right. For women who can struggle with certain workplace dynamics, it often can feel like we don't have the space to be fully acknowledged and comfortable in our authentic selves. So it's an important conversation to have in particular. I really especially loved hearing how the increased prevalence of external development has been beneficial to women in the industry, since we're often having to balance playing multiple roles beyond the one that we play at work, whether that's mom or partner or caretaker or even something else. I imagine that's something that you've had experiences with in particular, Nick.
Yeah. The fact that we're having these conversations now is so different from when I started in the games industry in 2005, and I started working in external development in 2007. A fun fact was that I went to the very first ever XDS. The conversations about the role of female identifying members within the community has evolved so much over the past 20 years. There's a lot of work to be done, but hearing this podcast inspires me to continue for the forward momentum and also to look around for support because it's there within the XDS community.
Yeah, there is so much. And that change really only happens with sustained and committed dedication. So we're really grateful and thankful to this XDS community for taking real and impactful actions to make our industry even more welcoming and empathetic. And so before we hand things off, we'd like to once again invite all female identifying attendees of XDS 2024 to join us for Women at XDS. The event will take place on Wednesday, September 4th from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. at Batch.
Yes, please do join us. You can add this event to your calendar via XDS Connect so you don't forget to come out and have fun with us. We look forward to meeting you all at the event. Now sit back and enjoy the conversation. Take it away, ladies.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Women at XDS podcast, Amplifying Women's Voices in the External Development Community. We are thrilled you are all joining us today in this conversation where we're hoping to help build a community of female identifying people within XDS, external development, game development. We want to help to create some awesome support networks for all of you, help you to feel included within the community, and hopefully spark some conversation at this September's XDS along the way as well. So we have a lovely group of people on the XDS external development couch with us today. I'll introduce myself first. I'm Carla Rylance. I'm the head of external production at Behaviour Interactive, and I'm the chair of the XDS Advisory Committee as well. I've been in external development for a number of years. I originally come from the UK, but I live in Vancouver now. I've been at the Coalition and EA and Behaviour Interactive whilst I've been in Canada, and a lot of fun it is as well. And I'll pass the mic to Caroline to introduce herself first.
Hi, I'm Caroline Calaway, and I'm a member of the XDS Advisory Committee and a passionate member of the XDS community at large. My background in external development is I've been doing this for about 7-8 years, first at EA, then at Riot, and yeah, I will pass it along to Nikki.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. My name is Nikki Roth. I'm a UX designer at Google Labs, currently working on Project Starline, but I have a background in games. I was working at EA and a background in film and virtual production and VR. When I was at Lucasfilm, I did simulation at Apple and AR also at Google. And throughout that, I've been in and out of external development, mostly from the art development side. But I'm also a member of the External Advisory, or the XDS Advisory Committee, and a co-chair of our Women at Labs group. And so I'm excited to try to help build up this group as well for XDS. So I will pass to Tara.
Hi, I'm Tara Phillips. I am the Art Service Line Director for Keywords, which is very large service provider in the games industry. I come from an art background. I've actually been in external development on the partner side for almost 15 years now, for my whole career in games. So started as a 2D artist, moved up to be art director for a number of years, and then sort of moved into more account management and client relationships, and now and then solutions, working across our whole create service line at Keywords, so all of our game dev and art studios, and now focusing in on my passion with all the art teams in taking over as director of the service line for art. So that's me.
Very nice. Where in the world are you right now, Tara?
I am based in Toronto in Canada.
Nice.
Hello,
Very
Canadian.
nice. Thank you very much for all the lovely, lovely intros. Let's start. We've got a few little topics that we're going to drill into a little bit today. So there's been a lot that's happened over the past few years in video games development in general. We all went through a pandemic, which a lot happened and a lot changed during that time. We've also been going through a period of industry instability, but I really want us to focus on how have things changed being a woman in game development or in external development, post-pandemic. What for you do you feel has been the biggest impact or the biggest change? I mean, I feel like when the pandemic first started and we started working remotely primarily as a industry, it almost felt as though the acceptance of external development throughout the games industry became much higher than it used to be. I felt as though everyone was working remotely, and so everyone knew what it felt like to work with people externally rather than being in an office. So I feel like that was a big change. But I also feel that it's something that a lot of companies are going to be embracing for the foreseeable. Remote work has become more and more acceptable. There's a lot more companies that are going back into the office, obviously, but I do feel as though when it comes to external development, is there really any point in changing? Because you are working with people all over the world. It doesn't really matter where you are. So I think for me, that's been one of the biggest changes. People are embracing remote work way more readily, and it's just becoming working with external partners is just as easy working remotely for me as it is in the office. What does everyone else think?
I think for me, my own experience, especially going through the pandemic and sort of some of the change before and after, it's a lot more easy to kind of find some family life balance, I guess. During the pandemic, I think there was a lot of movement towards understanding that, like, oh, people have families, women have families. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that people have to deal with in their lives, and I really felt a lot more support and willingness for there to be like management listening to and supporting you in like what you're going through in your life, and encouraging you to talk about, like, this is what's going on for me. How can we create a plan for success without trying to push all of those things down and pretend that they're not there, which has been really liberating. I think I think it's allowed women to be a bit more open about the sort of dual lives that we live as if we're mothers, is my experience. We can fill more than one role inside of our professional life, I guess, and that's been really encouraging, and I've sort of seen that across the board, and I hope that continues. I hope we don't swing back in the opposite direction again, as we sort of forget what we all went through in the pandemic.
Yeah, I could add to that comment of the dual life, or kind of, because during the pandemic, I was pregnant, and there are times where, on video, people had no idea I was pregnant until I was like, I'm going on leave. And so coming back post-pandemic, it's definitely been an adjustment to kind of embrace the mom life and figuring out how to pump in the office and how to like have these navigate the boundaries of like, I gotta go pick up my kid, or and all these things that people definitely dealt with before pandemic. But I do also agree with this kind of notion that hybrid work and remote work has become more of a norm, and it's definitely shifting that way. And there was a shift where pre-pandemic, most people were in the office, and people on the call were kind of like, I don't know if you call it like second class, but like it was the awkward, how do I accommodate? And then there was this shift post-pandemic where as people started going back into the office, it became more difficult to have a call because it's hard to see who's in the room and that kind of thing. And so now tools are trying to improve this. We're seeing it with like being able to see people in the room more clearly and show everyone the same. And the project I'm working on is literally trying to solve and help improve this hybrid work, and we're a distributed team. And so it's nice to kind of see this become a norm. And for external development, it's also just kind of a place where they already thrive. Like we already do this, we were already doing this pre-pandemic. And so now it's kind of like maybe can be a leg up as it becomes a norm worldwide.
And you know what else I've noticed as well? Like with the whole, like you're seeing people and their real life, like behind the camera. You're not just seeing people in the office. And so like, I find like when I'm working with an external partner and I'm seeing them at home, I'm seeing them for who they are. And it's like, it humanizes it a lot. And I think it allows you to create those more solid relationships, and allows you to kind of be more open with them, more transparent. Like when you see someone working and all of a sudden their kid comes in or their dog, and you're like, oh, this is a person, I really think like the humanization part of this whole thing that happened is actually like pretty good for external development and working with external partners and building those relationships. It's just another positive, really.
Yeah, I totally feel that way as well with the humanizing component. And I mean, it's interesting to think about how it's like it's both been humanizing, and then at the same time, we're spending a lot less time in person together. There's like both being able to see people's, home life, and not quite having that FaceTime, which I do think is I do think there's some loss in that. And I think it makes, things like XDS and other times we can come together, that much more important. So I do think there's a stronger emphasis to like make the most of that in-person time, but also really respecting people's need for flexibility. And I think I'm the only one here who does not have a kid yet, and I can say that in the past I've had some concern about whether or not I can stay in external development once I get to the point where I want to start a family. And that's because historically, like this job for me has required a lot of travel. Like before the pandemic, I was traveling all the time. And I was like, how on earth am I going to keep this up, post child? And now I think one thing that changed over the pandemic was there's now like a little bit more scrutiny around travel, for one. At least that's what I've seen. I don't know about you all, but there's a little less travel. And then there's also like, being able to work from home when you are home, that kind of helps like balance that component of external development out. So I find that I'm less concerned now about my ability to stay in external development with a family, and that feels really great. I don't know like what all has gone into that, or what all makes it easier for me to imagine my future, but it does, and I think that's a really good thing.
Oh yeah, like it's definitely, it can be challenging balancing travel when you have a kid, for sure. Like I feel that every time I travel, like my heart breaks and I cry like every single time, like without fail, I just do. And that's fine. Like I find myself as well going like, how needed is this travel at this time? How integral is it? Whereas previously I would be like, yeah, I'll travel here, there, and everywhere. What the heck? No, I love travel. Like I do love travel. I love it. But I find myself going, right, okay, well, what due diligence can I do remotely? What do I have to do in person? There's some which maybe you can do more of a deep dive or more of a clever investigation on if you are doing due diligence with a partner, for example, rather than a conference. Like, what is it that can be done remotely? What is it that I absolutely need to be in person to do? What can't I do remotely? And so I find myself kind of weighing up those options more carefully. And it's not just because like sometimes it can be a struggle with childcare when you're traveling. It's also like also have to consider like travel can have a large effect on the environment. I'm trying to be more like considering that a lot more often as well. But yeah, it's a challenge. But yeah, I have found myself actually post-pandemic, like weighing up more like, what is the need to travel? Do I need to do this? And what can I do to reduce risk remotely rather than via travel? But travel is still like, you have to do it. You just have to and work around it as best you can through the tears. Yeah.
Tara, I'm thinking about you having just gotten back from India and probably being super on top.
I'm still not back to like regular working hours yet. I'm sort of still in transition. And so, I think also just having support at home makes it so that you can do those sorts of things. One other thing that I wanted to mention about post or just like during pandemic, and this is maybe a bit trite, but I think the other thing that's been kind of interesting about being more remote is I think a lot less about like how I look and what my appearance is. I think as like women, especially, even though we're in games and games is like pretty casual and all that stuff, there's very much like this feeling that you have to show up a certain kind of way, especially if you're trying to represent, a sort of strong, put together person in a room full of men. I think about that a lot less. which is awesome. I
Mhm.
mean, obviously I still make an effort, but if I, don't change out of pajama pants one day, it's not a big deal, which is,
For every day.
happens sometimes.
Oh God, my wardrobe is probably the biggest thing that's changed for me post-pandemic. Like I literally don't have a pair of trousers that doesn't have an elasticated waist, and I will never buy trousers that don't have
Yeah.
an elasticated waist anymore because I'm just sat in this chair just like a blob all day.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with that, But yeah, smart clothes with elasticated waists are the best thing to come out of the last few years.
I agree with that.
Right, I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk about celebrating some of the women that have inspired us or guided us in our journey through game development or external development throughout your careers. Like, is there anyone that you want to kind of lift up during this session? Maybe talk a little bit about like what qualities they have, what they embodied, and how they've supported and empowered you throughout your journey. And there were quite a few women that came to mind for me for this one, and it was a struggle to pick someone that I really wanted to focus on, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to focus on someone that I'm currently working with, that is one of the strongest, most put together women I've ever had the joy of working with, and her name is Mary Olsen. Her role is VP of Strategic Portfolio at Behavior, and she's always been an amazing pillar of support for me, always believed in me and my kind of expertise within the industry when working with external partners. And she's really helped me to elevate my communication style, and making sure that I'm wording things in the right way to get to the point and get what I need out of things. Like, she's incredibly good at knowing how to hit the right chords with things, and yeah, she's just been a great pillar of support, very understanding, and always there, and it's a rare person to find, someone like Mary. So I just wanted to make sure that I call her out because she's super cool and I like her. Does anyone else want to highlight someone that they really like?
I am happy to jump in with this. I also had a hard time narrowing it down. It's I really find the external development community to have just an incredible number of really wonderful women. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast with you all, and why I've wanted to really get involved with women at XDS. I believe it's an especially thoughtful group of women. So just a general shout out to the women at XDS community. I especially want to call out my former manager, Lauren Freeman, who was the director of the XDI group at EA when I first went into external development. Lauren,
I concur. She's great.
I know. I was like, oh man, is Carla also going to choose Lauren? Because she just really is that great. But when I wanted to get into XDev, she really gave me the opportunity to transition from production on gamed teams to the central XDev team, XDI. And, I think it takes a certain level of trust to be able to talk to someone within your own organization about wanting to switch roles or like switch, onto their team. And Lauren was so approachable to begin with. And I knew that I could trust her during the course of those conversations about talking about moving on to her team. And that was huge to begin with. And then when I ended up going on to the XDI team, I think there are a couple of things that really stood out to me about her leadership style. I think she is one of the most well-rounded leaders I've ever worked with or come across. I think she's able to really balance being direct and firm while also being really compassionate and thoughtful, very enthusiastic and outgoing, and also has like the analytical component that's important for a leader. And I also noticed her ability to manage both up and down really effectively. And that's something I think about a lot as I develop in my career, is the importance of that. You really can't just be good at managing one way. You need to be able to do both. And I think I really felt so seen and enabled in working with Lauren. And she's set a really high bar, I'll just say that. So any future leaders I work with, it's pretty hard to hit that, but Lauren Freeman, you're awesome.
All right. I don't know who's going to jump in here, but maybe I'll just mention a couple of things. I've had the pleasure of working with Ashley Liu, who's the managing director for Create, and my boss for the last 5 years. What I've sort of noticed in my career in general is that I definitely gravitate towards leaders who don't micromanage, are very empowering, and have a lot of trust in the people that they hire, and hire very much based off of not just capability, but like personality and culture fit. And so I just want to give a quick shout out to Ashley, but actually somebody that I also want to talk about is Mahana Costa, who she sort of started in XDev not that long ago. And I think when it was her first job was when I was working with her at Relic. And she just grabbed the bull by the horns and was just this force that was, she was amazing to watch, grow and come into her own. And we work with her now at Respawn. And I think the thing that really strikes me about her is just how incredibly encouraging she's always been. And whenever I see her in person or at XDS, it's my favorite time. It's like when I see Mahana and she's just this ball of energy. She's like, "Oh my God, Tara!" And then she starts telling everybody, "This woman is a superstar and she's amazing and she's gonna do amazing things." And it's so it's really rare to meet women who are just so openly and really refreshing. To meet women who are just there to big up other people and sometimes have you feel a way about yourself that you don't always feel. And you mentioned it earlier, Caroline, about feeling seen. And I think Mahana makes me feel seen in ways that I didn't even know was possible. So I'm so thrilled about how she's grown and what she's going to do moving forward. And I hope that we continue to foster people who are just so positive in terms of how they talk about and build relationships with other women around them.
I just want to say, I love that so much, Tara. I wanted to throw a ton of heart emojis throughout what you were saying. And one thing I'm noticing as we're having this conversation is I'm already thinking, oh my gosh, I want to meet these women,
Yeah.
while we're talking about who I don't know. And I think that is such a special part of having this conversation. And I hope that whoever listens to this is like, ooh, I want to connect with those people they're mentioning too. And then, that's how this community grows. And that's how a network of really special people come together. And I just wanted to shout that out.
I was just going to say that, like, I love hearing when women lift women, because I've definitely been in the case when, other women are trying to get in front of you, if anything. And so it's always so refreshing when you always hear about women who lift other women, and all the badass women. Like, this is great. It's just been fun to talk about and like reflect and hear these stories.
People
Carla, did
listening
you want to
can't
say
see
something?
the amount of. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, people listening can't see the amount of smiles that are like happening right now across like all of the people. It's like this conversation has made everybody just so happy.
Yeah.
It has. And you know what? That's one of the things that I love about XDS as well. Like, you were mentioning like these people have like so much energy and make you feel so good when you're with them. And I thought that you get that a lot with XDS. Like, it is like one of my favorite, well, it is my favorite conference of the year, because every single time I go, I know I'm going to see people whose faces are like either like I recognize or like make new connections that I'm like, you are a really cool person and I'm really glad to be around you for these next few days. And you're going to be seeing them, like, it's quite a boutique conference in a way, it's not like the biggest conference that you've ever been to, like GDC. It's perfect for making those personal connections and keeping them, which is what you need with an external development, right? It's about creating and keeping those connections. And a lot of people that go to XDS, it's just like they're always such a joy to be around. It's a very unique feel of conference, I think.
So true. I don't. What is it that is? I want to hear too. Who you want to talk about too, Nikki? I don't mean to shy away from this, but it'd be cool to like come back either in this podcast, maybe a future one, about like what is unique about the XDS community that fosters that, because there is something that I guess to be fair, I haven't like been really heavily part of another community like this to compare it to, but I do sense that there is something kind of magical about the community at XDS, and something about, I don't know if it's like that external development just draws certain types of people in, and that's part of it. I don't know what it is, what's that secret sauce, but it is, I'm totally with y'all. Like, going to XDS is it's such a special time, and you do just come out of it feeling like I feel on top of the world, like you can take on anything. And I mean, just elevating other women alone, like, sure, that's not, that alone is not enough for like to like be a leader, but I think that it's so powerful. I guess that's really what I'm trying to say, like, especially along with other skill sets. It's just it's really special, and I think that really elevating other women is still a little underrated. I think it could be done even more. Hopefully we do that with this podcast. Anyways, I'll stop rambling. Nikki.
Well, I totally agree. Like, I think it's a community that focuses on relationships and that empathy and just lifting each other up, because you succeed when you're both succeeding. And so actually the woman I want to call out and kind of is someone who has lifted me up, and is someone who also in a way introduced me to this community, which I'm so grateful for. Her name is Stephanie Majulian, and she was the first female manager I had in my career. And she was my manager when I was at Apple. And she empowered my coworker, Matt Rainey at the time, who used to be on the XDS advisory committee, to really like pursue supporting XDS. And he in turn introduced me. But she's so good at building effective teams. And I think that's like kind of what Caroline, you were alluding to, is just that like those, and what's been brought up by Tara too is that like the relationships, the culture, the teams, that even though they're not maybe within the same company, they're still a team and operate that way. But yeah, so she's so good at just like building a really effective team, creating that culture with transparency, getting people into the room, and just like lifting people up and really enabling them to do what they're there for and what they're best at. And she actually was able to lift me into a manager role, my first manager role, as well. So just goes back to that theme of women lifting other women up and how powerful that is and how much that really like gives us confidence and just kind of helps us shine and pave the way in a way that we can do it for others.
Lovely stuff. I want to go back quickly to because we ought to wrap up really. I could keep going, but unfortunately we cannot. But I think it would be a great way to round off, like coming back to the conversation about XDS. And do we have any tips for women who maybe it's their first time attending XDS and they don't know what to expect? Or does anyone have any tips or tricks? I mean, I have one I can share. So last year we started up the Women at XDS social, which was unofficial last year. We managed to get a really lovely group of female identifying people and allies to join us for that. And it was the goal of that was to help create a community for it. You know, if it is your first time going to XDS, that you can create some good connections that will be there for you for the rest of the conference and for the years to come. So we're going to be expanding that for this year. It's going to be an official part of the program, which is very exciting. So I would encourage any female identifying people to take a look for that in the program once it's live and sign up and come along and socialize with us. That'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, does anyone have any tips or tricks for XDS coming up?
I do, and I had to learn this the hard way. Don't try to be cute with your footwear, because you're going to be walking like a lot. You don't think you're going to be walking a lot because it's kind of all in the venue, but you boot it from like one meeting to the next meeting to the next meeting. And yeah, wear super comfortable shoes that you know are going to be comfortable. Definitely don't buy new shoes for the event.
And elasticated trousers.
Yes, that too. And if you have any kind of dry skin problems, make sure you bring lots of like lip chap and moisturizer, because the air is very dry inside the conference.
And it's actually pretty cold too sometimes.
Yeah.
Like some rooms are running a little cooler. So like a cardigan or something.
Hydrate for sure.
Yeah.
I would say that kind of adding to Caroline's thread of what makes XDS unique is a lot of the social events that happen. Like there tends to be at least one a day that is part of the program. And because of the size, you tend to see the same people at all of these events. People don't tend to like splinter off into too many separate things. And so really kind of leveraging that as a way to connect with people more than just once, and using and kind of trying to have the confidence it takes to just like walk up to a group, especially if there's like I think this could be a way where we lift each other up, right? Like if you're in it, it's always sometimes interesting to try to come into a conversation that's already going. But I think like if you see a woman walking around or in your one, like invite them over or make it definitely like a way to bring them into whatever conversation you're having. Cause it is just about like connecting people and meeting everyone and really taking advantage of those socials.
Totally. I recommend the noob social. If it is your first time attending XDS, you will get an invitation to noob social where if you haven't been to XDS before, you'll get an invite, and there'll be members from the advisory committee there as well to help answer any questions you have and give you any guidance. But that's a really great social. It really orientates you to the conference to come. So yeah, that's a big one too.
Yeah. I think the way that I would describe going to XDS as like the first experience, it's because it's so focused and so like it's kind of small when you compare it to other conferences that are out there. It's a small group of people comparatively, and it's a tight knit group, right? It's people who likely have been working together for a while, and one way to kind of think about it that I like kind of describe it as is it's like your first week at camp when there's a bunch of people there who have been to that camp before, but like you'll get to know people really quickly, and it's really inviting in so many ways, and you just kind of have to get stuck in and be like enjoy the experience. You'll get a lot out of it by participating. And people are not going to ever wonder why you're in a conversation with them. I think that's one other really special thing, is that because everybody is there about external development, you're never going to have like a conversation where you can't relate to what they're talking about, as you would in like maybe a larger game conference. So, be confident in your opening lines about what you care about, and most people are going to be like, oh, that's cool, yeah, let's have a chat about that.
Yeah, I totally agree as well. Like if you could be like trying to arrange a meeting with someone or bump into someone in a corridor, maybe it's not the right time for them, maybe they're busy. Again, going back to the socials, when people are there, they have a little bit of food, maybe a couple of little drinks. That's also a good time to go up to people and start building that connection, in a more kind of informal atmosphere, because sometimes these relationships kind of form over several conferences or whatever. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities to connect with people.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the women's social, I think it's Wednesday. I can't remember exactly when, but I know it's Wednesday. So it'll be towards the beginning of the few days. And I think that is definitely a great time. Even if you just, meet a few people, that's a great kind of it's a great way to then like you suggested, Nikki, like find those people at other events, and then maybe they'll introduce you to other people who they're talking to, and that's kind of how I think this community builds. I think one thing for me, like if I were new coming in, I could see how it could be a little bit intimidating coming into a group of people who, like, a lot of people know each other, have known each other for a while. There's, a lot of enthusiasm and excitement between people, and it's so genuine. It's not exclusive. I think that maybe is the main thing I want to say. Even though, you might see people bonding with each other a little bit more, it doesn't mean that you can't be part of that too. And as someone like coming in who is new to the community, don't worry about being an expert. Like, you don't have to know everything to like join a conversation about external development. I would say, just coming into conversations with general curiosity and trying to connect with people, human to human, I think is really the best way to start. And yeah, don't worry about being perfect. Know that it's a very welcoming community, and if you're in doubt, come find any one of us, and I guarantee that we will all welcome you with open arms to whatever conversation we're having.
Totally agree. Perfect way to round it off. So yeah, just to confirm, actually, so the Women at XDS Social by West Studio is on the Wednesday between 4:30 and 6:30 p.m. and it's going to be held at Batch, which is very close to the XDS venue. It's very cute. It's a very cute place and a lot of fun.
I'm excited.
So I'm excited too. It's going to be very, very fun. I'm going to have to round off. I want to say thank you to everyone for joining this conversation. Thank you, Caroline, Nikki, Tara, and everyone behind the scenes. And we hope you've all enjoyed this. It's been a lot of fun for us. And we'll hopefully, fingers crossed, see you all at XDS. If not, we'll see you all in the next podcast. Enjoy. Thank you.
So fun. Thank you,
Thanks.
Carla. Thanks,
Thank
Nikki,
you.
Tara.